21-point lead. And this is getting out of control in a hurry.
And Travis was right. It was out of hand in a hurry there in the third, but the Blazers really started to fight thanks to Scoot Henderson, who had 11 points in the third, and he spearheaded a Trailblazers' big comeback.
Back to Scoot. Scoot attacks, drives, runs it up, banks it in. It's an 11-point game, 76-65. Blazers have shaved 10 points off the deficit, the closest it's been since the 2:27 mark of the second quarter.
Yeah, and Scoot was just getting started. This time he stepped back behind the line from distance.
Wide open three. Buries it. Scoot's on fire. It's a 9-point game. Scoot's got 11 in the quarter. It's 78-69.
Well, the Trailblazers continued their run. In all, it was a 23-7 push to get right back in the game. Here's Dewap Reeve.
Bounce pass to Reith. Ball fake. Now he dribbles left. Gets to the rim and lays it in. It's a 5-point game, 78-73.
Wow. Awesome. The Blazers on fire. They're down 7 going into the fourth, but they opened up the quarter on a 12-7 push, and it was finished off by Shaedon Sharpe to cut the deficit to 2.
Gives it to Sharpe. Screen to the right from Walker. Top of the key. Sharpe goes left. Drives to the rim. Lays it in. And a foul. It's a 3-point game with 7:07 to play.
Well, he would finish off the 3-point play. The Blazers down 2. The problem is the Thunder continued to grind, and David Caruso provided the death nail.
Wiggins on the perimeter. Looks to the corner for Kenrich Williams. Now to Caruso for 3. Good. That's not how you get stops. 15-2 Thunder run. They lead it by 11.
And they would close the game on a 20-4 run, and they get the win 107-89. I think I said David Caruso. I've been watching too much CSI Miami. I meant to say Alex Caruso. It happens to me every time. All right, be sure to stay tuned to our flagship station, 620 Rip City Radio here in Portland. We're coming up in just a couple of moments. You can listen to the 5th Quarter with my man Brenden Slaughter. Our next broadcast is going to be
It's time for the 5th Quarter with Brenden Slaughter. The 5th Quarter is presented by Coors Light, Mountain Cold Refreshment, Juice Chill. Celebrate responsibly. 620 Rip City Radio, your home of the Portland Trailblazers.
Welcoming you into the 5th Quarter. I'm your host, Brenden Slaughter, and thanks for tuning in to the show. Your Portland Trailblazers fell to the Oklahoma City Thunder 107-89 at Paycom Center. The Blazers have finished up their road trip 4-3 and sit 28-36 on the year and fall to 12-22 away from Moda Center. This is the 5th Quarter, and you can join the conversation on Rip City Radio YouTube. Just head on over to YouTube, type in Rip City Radio, and join us there, or by calling the show, 503-248-0620. We want to hear from you. Again, Portland falls to Oklahoma City 107-89 to wrap up the road trip tonight, and I think, it's pretty self-explanatory. You could tell, despite the Thunder having, quite a few missing pieces, the Blazers just kind of ran out of gas in this game, and you could tell listening to Chauncey Billups post game, which we will be doing here shortly later in the show. And, he mentions, this was the one time on the road trip they didn't really give themselves a chance to win. And, I think that's a little harsh, but maybe accurate. I mean, the Blazers were in this game, but, Chauncey said the defense, they just really weren't themselves. And, we saw, Portland fight at moments, but at other times it looked like the Thunder were just a little bit fresher, not at the end of a road trip, and they were able to ultimately get it done tonight. Thunder came in as the top defensive team in the NBA, and the Blazers definitely felt that tonight. You talk about how this game starts. Blazers go just 1 of 7 from 3, 2 of 10 from the field there in the first quarter. Bit of a cold start. Portland eventually kind of gets things going. They actually did lead 9-6 earlier in the game before the Thunder went on a 12-0 run to lead 18-9. As we mentioned, that cold stretch of shooting during that Thunder run. There was a time when the Blazers missed 8 of 9 from the field, and the Thunder were really just playing fast. Despite not having Shea, despite not having, Lou Dort, some of their really key quality pieces, they just had next man up, and they were able to get out and run and, crank up the fast break points, the points off turnovers, and, that's what Oklahoma City likes to do. The Thunder got out, as we mentioned, that lead. Duop Reith hit a 3 to make it back to a 5-point game. It sat at 22-17 OKC. Scoot Henderson with a 3 to make it a 3-point game, and then Duop Reith with another 3 to bring it back to within 2. So even as that first quarter started slow for the Blazers, it definitely got a little bit better as it went on. They were able to, make it close. The Thunder ultimately hit a couple buckets just at the end to make it 29-24 after 1. And again, they started just 2 of 10 for 3. Blazers improved to 5 of 14 from 3. Something started to click a little bit. The Blazers shot 37% from the floor and 35% from deep there in the first. Shaedon Sharpe had 7, Duop Reith with 6, and Scoot Henderson with 5. Thunder had some balanced scoring there in the first. It was the start of the Aaron Wiggins show, and he ended up having a big night, but he had 9 in that first quarter, and the Thunder shot just better than the Blazers slightly, 40% and 38.5% respectively. Moving to the second quarter, that was where we saw, I think, some of the best Blazers basketball of the night. Blazers go on a 10-2 run to start the second, and that all 10 of those points come from Anthony Simons. They lead 34-31. It looked kind of like, hey, Blazers starting to figure some things out. The shot's falling a little bit. Another Simons and 1 gave the Blazers a 37-31 lead, and he had 13 straight points. He had a personal 13-0 run to put the Blazers ahead. It's finally snapped by Ousmane Deng, hitting 5 straight, a three-pointer and a bucket to make it 37-36. Then the Thunder went on a run. This sounds a little reminiscent of the game against Boston 2 nights ago. Not quite that much, but again, the Thunder seized control of this game with a big run in that second quarter. They go on a 13-0 run, and after the Blazers led 34-31 to lead 44-39. That was big. Scoot Henderson with a couple free throws to snap it, plus another bucket. Again, 44-43. It's right there in the second quarter. Then the Thunder with another big run to really, create a cushion for them going into the half. They go on a 19-2 run in the final 5 minutes of the second quarter. They push their lead to 63-45. That was their largest lead up until that point, and they took the second quarter 34-21 to take that 18-point advantage into the break. So again, we talked about the Blazers taking a lead with Anthony Simons' first strong start to the quarter. Thunder were able to have a response. And again, I think that's just so impressive when you consider, how we talked about it earlier in the broadcast, how much production the Thunder were missing as a result of injury. But then you look and you're like, that's why the Thunder are the best team in the West and have 52 wins, because even their bench guys can still come in and give you problems. Looking at those first half stats, it was largely Wiggins leading the Thunder with 19 points. Jalen Williams getting into the mix with 8 assists, 6 boards. Isaiah Joe with 13, and then Dang, as we mentioned, with 11. At the halftime break, the Blazers were led by the 14 from Simons, 11 from Scoot Henderson, 9 from Shaedon Sharpe, and 8 boards for Toumani Camara. And then this is where you start to see the shooting percentages kind of turn and be indicative of that lead the Thunder built up. At the halftime break, the Thunder were shooting 50% from the field, 40% from 3, to Portland's 37 and 23%. So, that margin started to widen a little bit. You saw the score, lead to it as well. At the half, 12 Blazer turnovers had led to 20 Thunder points. Again, another big stat that defines the game. Blazers did have the rebounding battle at the half, though, 26-22, and they ended up taking the rebounding battle in the game. So there is still that for Portland to hang their hat on in this one. Again, Thunder led 63-45 at the half. You didn't really know, kind of what we were in store for as far as at the end of a road trip, if it was going to be, more of the Blazers kind of just getting ready and packing it in, or if we'd kind of see what we saw against Boston, which was a real inspired effort down the stretch. And thankfully, it ended up being the latter. Once again, no quit in this Trailblazers squad. And I think they come out and surprised the Thunder a little bit in that third quarter. Thunder opened with an 8-5 run. They led 71-50, swooned the lead up to 21 points, and you're kind of like, oh boy, like what's going on here? Then the Blazers went on a big-time run and ultimately ended up really dominating the third quarter. It was kind of the one piece that didn't quite fit in with the rest of the game. The Blazers took the third quarter 28-17 after losing all three of the other quarters, and most impressively went on a 23-7 run to make it 78-73, a massive swing after the Thunder led by 21 points. So again, you talk about Blazers getting right back into the game. We're able to get some timely buckets, play some better defense, held the Thunder to a much smaller number than they had in the first half. And there it was, 83-70 going into the, or 80-73, pardon me, going into the fourth quarter. You look at that third quarter, who stood out. Donovan Clingan had, 6 points in the second quarter. Scoot had 11 to add on to the 11 he had in the first half. 5 points from Shaedon Sharpe. And again, the Blazers were able to take that third quarter going away. Some of the leaders after three, we mentioned Scoot with 22 points. Shea and Simons had 14 each. Over for the Thunder, Wiggins with 25, Dang with 16, and Isaiah Joe with 13. One note that I was able to grab tonight from the Blazers TV broadcast that I thought was notable was the Blazers had 0 turnovers in that third quarter, and apparently are the only NBA team to have a turnover-less quarter against the Thunder this season. So, again, you take your wins where you can get them, small ones as they may be. But, I still think with a young team that shows, growth and development. And I think the Thunder put a lot of pressure on you as a defense. So you've definitely got to like that as well. And, talking about how the Blazers got back into that game in the third quarter, they had an 18-10 rebound advantage in the third. Over to the fourth quarter, the fourth and final period, with the Thunder leading 80-73. Again, 7-point game was right there. We saw both teams trade buckets early in the fourth. It was back and forth, 4 points for each here, and then 6 points for each here. Ultimately, the Blazers got it down to 87-82. Blazers then went on a 12-7 run and brought it to within 2 points at 87-85. But that's where the Thunder just had one more answer and enough to pretty much put the game on ice. Jalen Williams hits a three to push the lead back to 90-85. Wiggins with a three, 93-85. A quick 6-0 run. Another Williams bucket made it 95-85, an 8-0 run. Then the Thunder took it even further from there, a further 10-4 run to ultimately put the game away and take the fourth quarter 27-16. So, again, Portland had put themselves in a position to make that fourth quarter competitive, and I think you kind of saw it, not like it's an acceptable or proper excuse, but I think the Blazers were, a little gassed at the end of this 7-game road trip, and the Thunder were able to kind of get out and run in this one and, maybe have a little tired legs get into, the mix as far as a factor. So, all those things to say, it ended up being one of the tougher results for the Blazers on this road trip after, we talked about the potential for them to get a marquee win with so many key guys for the Thunder out. But, it just wasn't in the cards and wasn't meant to be tonight. They finished with a 4-3 record on the road trip, and they are back home for Bill Walton night against the Detroit Pistons on Sunday night. All 5 Thunder starters finished in double figures, led by the 30 points from Aaron Wiggins. Isaiah Joe and Ousmane Dang had 16 apiece. Jalen Williams with a triple-double. And no, this is their second Jalen Williams, not the Jalen Williams that was out tonight, who's borderline all-star. This is Jalen Williams, who's just a solid player. But he comes in with a triple-double, 10 points, 11 assists, 11 boards in this one. Williams chips in 10, and then 17 for Alex Caruso off the bench. So just a solid performance for the Thunder in a game where they, like we said, were missing a ton of production in this game. So nevertheless, you've almost got to tip your cap to a team that's able to, have a next man up approach and be successful. And I don't even know if it was so much that as the Thunder had just 107 in this game compared to, the Boston game where they just were on fire. I think this was a game where the Blazers just didn't have their shot, right? I mean, looking at, the game stats, nobody particularly shot the ball incredibly. I mean, Scoot Henderson was about, 50%. Shaden Sharp and Anthony Simons had some moments, but it was just quiet. It was quiet tonight, and you can't have that when you're trying to take down, the best team in the West, regardless of who they have on the bench. So there is that as well. Going back to the Blazers side of things, we mentioned 22 from Scoot Henderson, 19 from Shaden, 14 from Simons. And here's something that I found interesting. Anthony Simons had 13 of his 14 points in that second quarter as part of that 13-0 run, never scored again. So, again, it was just one of those weird things where, Simons ended up on the night 5 of 16, 1 of 6 from beyond the arc. And with that, you wouldn't look and go, man, he had a personal, 13-0 run going in the second quarter. That just kind of shows he only had his shot for just a little while. And I think it was pretty indicative of, the Blazers shooting performance tonight. They struggled offensively, just 35% from the floor, as we mentioned, 18% from three, to OKC's 46 and 37%. And, those numbers, you're not going to win too many ball games when you're getting outshot like that, regardless of what happens. So, you almost just got to chalk it up as a tough performance and circle the wagons and be thrilled that you went 4-3 on the road trip and go from there. So, the Blazers, still finished this road trip with a winning record. I think when we began and talked about this 7-game road trip and the teams that were ahead of it, I think the Blazers did exactly what most people thought they would do, right? They won against who they were supposed to win, and they lost against who they were probably supposed to lose to. And it's frustrating that the Blazers had a pretty good performance against Cleveland, and, we're right there to pull that out. Even Boston, they had the offense that if Pritchard and White had been just a little bit less effective, they could have really put a scare into that game. And then you go to tonight where I agree with Chauncey. This is one of those games where despite the Blazers getting to where they did and making it a close game in the second half, you just didn't really feel like they had the consistent offense needed to kind of pull this one out. So that happens sometimes. Sometimes it's just not your night. Your shot's not falling. So that is how the cookie crumbles sometimes, rather. And a sweep in the season series for the Thunder and for the 4th straight year. And I couldn't even believe this when Travis Demers said it on the postgame show, but 16 straight wins for the Thunder in this series. I mean, I would need to go back and look and do the math, but that's got to almost be close to like when Dame waved away the Thunder all those years ago. I mean, I think I'm probably skipping on like a year, and it probably started right after that if I'm doing my math correctly. But, 4 years is a lot, and, that's not necessarily the kind of wins or losing streaks you'd like to have. So as Travis mentioned, the Blazers will have to wait until next season to get some revenge on the Thunder, but they have certainly had Portland's number as of late. We'll go ahead and take our first break here on the 5th quarter. When we come back, we'll be getting into the shot of the night, drive of the night. We'll be taking a look back at what my keys to the game were and how the Blazers didn't quite meet them tonight in the loss. We'll be taking a look at some team stat breakdowns and more. You've got the 5th quarter with Brenden Slaughter here on Rip City Radio 620.
Wiggins on the perimeter. Looks to the corner for Kenrich Williams. Now to Caruso for three. Good. That's not how you get stops. 15-2 Thunder run. They lead it by 11. Kamara up top. He attacks left. Stops. Now to Sharp to the rim. Up and under. Banks it in. What a play by Shaedon Sharp.
Welcoming you back into the fifth quarter. Your host, Brenden Slaughter here, coming to you following Portland's 107-89 loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And, even in a tough performance, there's always at least one highlight a night where, Travis Demers is, just in awe about the athletic ability of Shaedon Sharp. And it is always nice still to have, just see the things that he can do out there that look effortlessly sometimes. Thanks for joining the fifth quarter. If you want to join the conversation, 503-248-0620, or you can go to our Rip City Radio YouTube page, jump on the live link, and talk to us there as well as we're breaking down this 107-89 loss to the Thunder. Let's go back and take a look at the keys to the game that we had entering the matchup and see how the Blazers ultimately fared in this one. The first one we had was kind of shake off that Celtic loss. Don't let one loss become two, and kind of get back to what the Blazers did. It's hard to say, but you kind of got to take that as, not hitting that key. I mean, Chauncey mentioned it in his postgame. The Blazers, this was one of the games they didn't really give themselves the best chance to win. It's tough offensive performance. You hear the old cliche, tired legs, jump shots, all those things. I would just say, as this one progressed, the Blazers just looked a little bit tired, but that's to be expected after a 7-game road trip. Next, we mentioned, handle the road environment. OKC, pretty loud, hostile place to play. Say it wasn't bad. I don't think it was too much of a factor. The Thunder just hit shots, and the Blazers just struggled tonight. Staying out of foul trouble was another one we had. It was better, right? Only Jabari had 4 fouls. Everyone else had 3 or less in this, and no foul outs, nobody in foul trouble. So what we've seen from Portland recently, you definitely like to see that. Perimeter shots, we talked about limiting what OKC could do there. Not like Boston level, obviously, but still not enough, defensive pressure. Like Chauncey said, too many open drives to the lane, too many, open shots from 3. The Thunder go 14-38 from beyond the arc. Next key we had was don't let OKC's next man up burn you the way Boston did. Not so much. They did. Aaron Wiggins, Alex Caruso, Isaiah Joe, Williams. These are all guys that are kind of, on the edge of the Thunder rotation when they have, their full complement of guys. And, you got to credit them. They stepped up and hit some shots, and it wasn't necessarily 2 guys exploding like we saw last night, but rather a collective team effort. And that's what the Thunder are able to do particularly well. Next, we looked at Oklahoma City's free throw attempts. They had the best percentage in the league. We said limit how much they go to the line. Thunder went 15-17. That just was what it was. We talked about forcing turnovers. OKC does not turn the ball over. Nope. They hit exactly their average at 11 in this game, so they were not, pressured beyond their norm. We talked about not turning it over, whereas Oklahoma City does not turn the ball over. They love to turn you over. With 10 steals a game, they led the NBA. Portland had 17 turnovers in this game. Definitely not ideal in those points off turnovers for the Thunder. 25 points for the Thunder off of those 17 Blazer turnovers. Then last but not least, we said get to the line, right? We need the Blazers to be better at the free throw line. The Thunder will foul you. They were the bottom 5 in the NBA with that. And you look at this game, 15 of 18 from the line. Not bad. One of my more favorite stats from this game. After the last couple, you saw the Blazers leave some cheddar out there at the line and, being able to be a little sharper and, shoot 83% from the line. Those are numbers I can get behind. So you got to make those free ones. Looking a little closer at the team stat breakdown. Again, this is the fifth quarter. You can join the conversation, 503-248-0620. If you're on hold, we'll get to you in just a moment. And if you want to join the conversation on YouTube, that's ripcityradio.com. And you can go over to our live section and jump in the comments of this matchup. Looking at some of the team stats that defined this matchup, the Thunder outshot the Blazers 46% to 35% from the floor. 3-pointers also went to the Thunder, 37% to 19%. The Thunder hit 6 more threes than the Blazers in this one. We mentioned 83% from the free throw line is a solid improvement. I'm going to continue to harp on that after, the Blazers had some free throw games that were not so great. Going back to the more team stats, just 15 assists for Portland compared to the 25 for Oklahoma City. Just kind of shows the Blazers tough shooting tonight, even with good ball movement, not able to convert on a lot of those assists. We mentioned the 17 Portland turnovers for 25 OKC points. That is, definitely the margin of difference in this game. And, you limit that, turn the ball over a lot less, and this game probably feels a lot different. 16 fast break points for OKC to Portland's 8. Blazers did win the boards 53-43. The Thunder largest lead was 21, while Portland's largest lead in this matchup was 6. So, all told, like we said, tough way to end the road trip, tough way to really end, the road trip, last, 3 out of the last 4 games with opportunities, obviously, to beat Cleveland, opportunity to beat Boston. I know Chauncey didn't quite see it that way, but there still was an opportunity to win today, despite the Blazers not playing their best. And, from that perspective, you're a little disappointed that you weren't able to steal one, right? I mean, we talked all week about it. The Blazers' ability to grab one on the road, and, that could have kind of a springboard effect, because we talked about it with Sean Highkin on Blazers game day. For the Blazers to make a real charge at that 10 spot, folks, and you look at their schedule, they are going to have to beat teams with a winning record. They're going to have to beat some teams that are better than them. Sure, they're taking care of business instead with the teams that they're supposed to beat. Don't get me wrong, and that's great. That wasn't always a sure thing with the Blazers, during this whole rebuild process the last, handful of years. But you have to take that next step and be able to get over the hump and get wins. Not even so much on the road. I mean, road wins, 4-3 road trip. There's teams in the NBA that will take that regardless of where they are in the standings. So you can't scoff at that. But when Portland has, a big stretch of games coming up, and, we'll go ahead and pull up their schedule. Talking about Detroit coming up, on Sunday. That's a winnable game for Portland at home, sure. But Detroit's a playoff team in the East, and not even a play-in team, firmly in the playoffs in the East. You got New York. That's another team that is high up in the East, sitting in the 3rd spot. Toronto, Washington, a little bit more of lesser opponents, but then you got Memphis, Denver, Boston, Cleveland on this homestand coming up. So, for the Blazers to really put a charge into that 10th spot, you're going to have to start coming up with wins against some of those better teams. And, I think we're going to see, the proof meet the pudding, so to speak, and see what this Trailblazer team is all about, and, kind of see how they finish this stretch run. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see, how they adapt when they get home. Again, they've got 8 of their next 9 at Moda Center, with just one little game to Golden State coming up this next Monday. But otherwise, after that game at Golden State, they will not go back on the road until the 27th of March at Sacramento, and won't really take a major road trip until they begin a 5-game East Coast swing in March, end of March against the Knicks. So there's a homestand coming up for the Trailblazers. Definitely get out to Moda Center and see this group. They're definitely been fun to watch play lately, and I'm betting that we could see some good performances during that stretch. Let's go ahead and head out to the phones, where we got Victor following the loss to the Thunder. Victor, what's on your mind, my man?
All right, thank you, Brandon. There are several things, but maybe we don't have enough time to talk about of it. You see, these better teams, how they get their players, I mean, I can tell you how. You see, like Shea, Alexander, this guy, that guy, Well, we got 2 in the last 2 years, or last couple of years. We got 2 draft pick. We got 2 lottery pick, very good, Clinton and Scoot. So we got 2 of them, but they are not as good as Shea. So what I'm saying is, when the general manager of a team or a state of Oklahoma against Portland, Oregon, these people, they are not, they're very smart, and they are very psychology, prepared. That means that Oklahoma, they are thinking, well, in the next 5 years, we're going to be the first 3 teams in the league, in the next 5 years or 4 years or whatever.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the phone call, Victor, and definitely it's one of those things where, just as a pure basketball fan, obviously, I'm here in Portland, and like to see the Trailblazers succeed more than most, but I'm also a basketball fan, and I'm obsessed with those GMs and front offices that can build a winner, and I think more than anything, I just gotta give credit from abroad, right? I mean, it's It's cliche, but basically since Damian Lillard waved away the Thunder in that playoff series, Sam Presti, their GM, who's been there for a long time and, again, has to be one of the more respected GMs across the league for what he's been able to do, quietly, went about rebuilding the Thunder. And you mentioned Shea, and that's obviously a huge piece to that deal. I mean, you talk about how the Thunder were like, okay, we're content to trade Russell Westbrook away. We're content, I should say, to trade Paul George to the Thunder for this, or Paul George to the Clippers, for this rising rookie who just led them to the playoffs, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and a whole swath of picks. And it's just been like, they've struck it rich. I mean, I loved their acquisition of Jalen Williams, the one who did not play tonight, from Santa Clara. I think he's been a stud. The other Jalen Williams has been solid. Alex Caruso for, Josh Giddey. This last offseason was a very shrewd move for the Thunder. So, to your point, Victor, I got to give the Thunder credit. They're definitely a model for how the Blazers could rebuild after, the Thunder traded away their stars, kind of like the Blazers did with Dame. And they rebuilt very, very quickly. And, it worked out very well for them that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander became an MVP. And I don't think, in hindsight, the Clippers would make that deal and give all that draft capital for, if they knew Shai Gilgeous was going to be an MVP. But they were desperate to pair Kawhi with Paul George and wanted to, make that happen. And the Thunder and Sam Presti were able to take advantage of it to their gain. So, it's no different than how we look back and look about how Joe Cronin made the move to get Denny Avdia and how that's become one of the better moves of the offseason. Or, how we've, talked at length about how, Cronin, maybe it was Mike Schmitz, maybe others were insistent that Toumani Camara be included in the bigger Dame DeAndre Ayton deal. And those are just two moves, but those are moves that when you take a step back and examine them in like the same way that the Thunder rebuilt after trading away their stars, you're like, okay, those are some pretty savvy moves yourself. So, it's frustrating, when you have a game like this to have, Thunder's B team essentially come in and light it up. But, I've been particularly impressed with the Blazers' ability to identify talent lately and identify talent that fits in this roster. And I think we're going to continue to see them grow. Growth is not always linear, right? It's ups and downs. I mean, it's just the way that it goes when you're, rebuilding with a young team, figuring out which pieces fit where and all those things. So I definitely think the Thunder can be a good team to look at and model, because it wasn't that long ago they were near the bottom of the West, after the whole, trading situation, and now they find themselves at the top again. So definitely something good there, and appreciate the phone call, Victor. We'll go ahead and take a quick break here on the fifth quarter. When we come back, we will be catching up with head coach Chauncey Billups, hear what he had to say following the loss to the Thunders. The Blazers are most likely getting close to getting on a plane and heading back to Portland after this long 7-game road trip. We'll also hand out a couple game balls and put a bow tie here on the fifth quarter. You've got the fifth quarter with Brenden Slaughter here on Rip City Radio 620.
we didn't give ourselves a chance in that first half. I didn't think we pressured, and we got away from who we are, in terms of defensively. We just let them just drive around us, no help there. Let them get confidence, and it really just backfired on us. Got ourselves in too big of a hole, and we fought like crazy, got it to 2, but you almost got to play perfect in those situations. Fighting so hard, I thought we ran out of gas a little bit, couldn't score the last 6 minutes of the game. But yeah, I mean, we this was the only game on the trip that I would say we never really gave ourselves a real chance in terms of how we fought and how we paid attention to detail.
Does that coincide with probably the fact that it was the 7th game of a 7-game road trip? I know you don't like to make excuses, but
yeah,
maybe some tired legs on this one.
Yeah, I don't believe in that, Brooke. It was just a basketball game. It was a basketball game. It's not like we played last night and that we were good. We were good to go. I don't believe in no excuses. It is what it is. You got to play the game. And I thought we prepared ourselves well enough and just didn't come out and execute.
You talked about the end of the first half there. What do you feel like you maybe could have done differently or better in order to stem that tide? Because it really, to your point, like 16 or 14-0.
Yeah, I just thought our attention, we were giving up everything. We were giving up split, we were giving up layups, we were giving up threes, just so many blown coverages. And then you turn the ball over on top of that, and it just keeps going. That snowball just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and we had some guys that came in there and tried to fight as hard as they could. Thought there were some guys that gave us some really good minutes, but we don't do it like that. We do it with everybody. Everybody has to play well. Everybody has to be on the same page. And I just thought it was just a tough day for us overall.
Walk's been doing a good job of staying ready to everything
Yeah, I thought Wap did a good job. Wap's had a great trip. He really has, in particular tonight. He gave us some things that we needed in terms of his shooting a little bit, but just his playmaking as well. He was just good defensively. I didn't think he did a poor job at all. He's always ready. I'm happy for him. You never know when your number's going to get called, and he's stepped in and done a really good job for us.
How do you come away from this trip, Coach?
Well, I thought it was a good trip for us. I thought it was a really good trip for us, with the exception of tonight's game. We had a chance to win every single game. Even the Boston game where they shot the heck out of the ball. I felt like we were, in that fourth quarter, we were a couple, stops or rebounds away from making it interesting. Tonight's the only game where I never felt like we had any control in the game. But I thought it was a great trip for us. I really do. I thought it was a great trip for us. We knew that it was going to be a really, really tough trip, playing against some really, really tough teams, particularly at the end of the trip. So, yeah, I thought it was a good trip for us. We get to finally go home, well, at least for a day. We finally get to go home. We're all excited about that.
That was Portland Trail Blazers head coach Chauncey Billups following the 107-89 loss to the Thunder, and you could hear it in his voice how happy after a 7-game road trip he and the team are to come home. And, I think about Anthony Simons post Boston that we played earlier in Blazers game day when he's like, I just want to get home to my son. And, when you've been on the road, for as long as the Blazers have been on the road, that's a very relatable kind of deal is, you're just away from your loved ones for quite that long. So Blazers definitely going to be happy to be back in the friendly confines of Moda Center. And, just a couple things there from Chauncey, I found it, like this game, the Blazers had, a chance. They were right there, managed to, fight their way back into this game. But I found it interesting how he felt they never had control. And Chauncey kind of felt like this game felt weird. And at times it did, but I go back to that third quarter when the Blazers really put a charge back into it and the Thunder just, had an answer. And that's where Chauncey was saying that, not enough attention to detail on the defensive side of the ball, not enough defense. Combine that with too many turnovers, and that snowball is going to keep getting bigger. So definitely understandable where he's coming from there. But at the same token, he said they're very happy with a 4-3 record on the road trip, and you can understand why. as far as, the teams they had to play on this. And most importantly, how he said, with the exception of this game, he felt like they had a real shot at winning every game. So I think, with the Cleveland and Boston results, that's still encouraging moving forward. And, we'll see what Portland is able to do, on this homestand. We mentioned they got Detroit on Sunday. It's going to be Bill Walton night. Definitely want to tune in for that. Or if any Blazer fans go to that, make sure to rock your tie-dye for old Big Red, man. I mean, my goodness. It's talk about history, man. Bill leading the charge for Rip City's only championship, man. It is special. Bill Walton deserves to be, honored, and we really did lose an icon when, Bill passed away, this past May, and it's hard to believe he's, already been gone that long, and he's truly was a treasure, and I hope the Blazers and everybody do a tremendous job, honoring him in that game on Sunday, because I'm going to be definitely excited to see some of the garb and see what fans are wearing and all that kind of stuff. But nevertheless, that's where the homestand, the one-game homestand will start. But again, we mentioned 8 of their next 9 are at Moda Center. You come home for a game against Detroit. You have a back-to-back with Golden State on Monday, but then you have New York, Toronto, Washington, Memphis, Denver, Boston, Cleveland, all at home. You don't go back on the road again other than Golden State until the end of March. So, the opportunity's there. Now's the time for a run. I mean, Blazers clearly get their second crack at Boston and Cleveland when they come to Moda Center. Will they be a little bit motivated for that game considering they just played them? I would think so. So definitely going to be something to keep an eye on there as well. Let's go ahead and hand out our game balls in this one. Yeah, also got to shout out the Tears for Fears backdrop on this one, Shacker. That was nailing the game ball music tonight. I'm going to go ahead and give it to Scoot Henderson with his 22 points off the bench. We talked about a tough, shooting night for the Blazers altogether, but Scoot, goes 8 of 15. That's better than 50%, hits a couple threes, also has 3 assists, 4 rebounds. So I'm going to give the game ball to Scoot Henderson tonight as, again, the Blazers fall to the Thunder 107-89. Well, that'll go ahead and do it for us here on the 5th quarter. Big thanks to Rip City Radio and Mike Shacker. Catch us next on Sunday as the Blazers are back and are hosting the Detroit Pistons at Moda Center for Bill Walton night. Tip-off will be at 6 o'clock, and Chris